So thank you everybody for waiting. Our last presentation for TechOpps 2021, and I'm delighted to have Coby Hanoch, the CEO of Weebit Nano, on stage with me to finish off and close out this conference. Just before we start our chat, Coby, I just want to introduce the company and yourself to those that may not have met you.
Okay.
For those that aren't aware, Weebit is a leading developer of next generation semiconductor memory technology. You might not realize, but pretty much everything we use, phones, laptops we're using today, the fridge, cars, all use chips, and those chips need memory technology to run. Most of those chips have got embedded flash, and that's kind of nearing the end of its useful life, if you want to call it that. And so, you know, Weebit's very much focused on what comes next. And we can touch on that while we have our conversation, Coby. The company's groundbreaking resistive random access memory, you might hear Coby refer to ReRAM, addresses the growing need for higher performance, more reliable, lower power, and more cost-effective non-volatile memory solutions in a range of electronic products. Just by way of background, Coby, the CEO, has 15 years experience in engineering and engineering management and 26 years experience in sales and executive roles. Coby has a history of growing technology companies, having been vice president of worldwide sales at Vericity, where he was part of the founding team, grew the company to over $100 million in annual sales, and then which ultimately facilitated its acquisition by NASDAQ-listed Cadence Design Systems. I won't go through your CV in detail, Coby, because essentially heaps of technology experience and a history of building startup technology companies into major organizations. So thank you for joining us today. And I know everyone wants to hear about the cap raise that was announced on Monday morning, but let's kind of push that out to the sort of latter part of this conversation. I'd love to start with, and you know, we've had through the 2 days technology companies doing wonderful things globally, and you know, Weebit's a really interesting company because you're listed and have directors here in Australia. You've got an R&D team and facility and sales in Israel, and we've also got a French, you know, very well-known subsidiary, but also a development partner in CAE Leti. So, you know, this is a really sort of truly global business. Maybe we can start with CAE Leti and the relationship that Weebit Nano has and how the two partners truly have worked together to help bring Weebit's technology to the point it is today.
Yeah, Leti are an amazing partner. It's one of the two best known, I think, leading R&D facilities in the semiconductor space. So in our industry, they're very well known. It's actually a company, or I guess an organization that belongs to the French government. As you might know, setting up a semiconductor fabrication facility is very, very expensive. It's, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars and above. You know, normally it goes into the billions of dollars. And so it's not easy to find a good R&D partner that has such an advanced facility. Leti has a really very good facility, and they have a lot of experience in semiconductors. They have, I think, 1,500 PhDs there, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it's crazy, the staff that they have, the experience that they have, and we're working very closely in developing this technology. So I'm really happy to work with them.
Maybe one other factor which people tend to forget about with technology companies is the people. You know, it's great having a technology that works wonderfully and scales and you can license and all the rest of it, but ultimately, you know, the strength of a company is in its people. Can you give us a sense of, you know, who's involved on the board and who's involved in the executive team? Because I suspect a lot of people don't appreciate the caliber of the board and the management team sitting within Weebit.
Oh, of course. You know, that's I think that's really a very, very important element in Weebit. I've been, as you said, I've been involved in lots of startups and companies. I've never seen such a board and executive team, so I'm extremely proud of it. You know, our chairman, Dadi Perlmutter, he's the guy who you could say invented the Pentium processor. He was managing the Pentium processors at Intel from the day it started until, you know, 6-7 years ago when he left Intel. He was candidate to be the Intel CEO, very well known in the industry, has lots of experience, and he's an amazing person to support me, and we're working very closely. We have Yoav Nissan Cohen. This guy, on the one hand, he did his PhD under Dov Fruman, the guy who invented non-volatile memory. So he's been in this industry from day one. He knows it inside and out on the technical side. He's also the guy who set up Tower Semiconductor, which I believe is fab number 6 in the world. It's in the top 10 fabs in the world. He knows the fab business, which is very critical for our technology. And he's an executive director, so he's working part-time in the company. Again, just a phenomenal guy to work with. And then Atik Raza, who took, as I say, a lesser-known company called AMD back in the 90s and made it what it is today. And for the Australians who are less familiar with semiconductors, AMD today is actually, in certain aspects, even more advanced than Intel already. So he's great both technically and business-wise. And then, we have the 2 Australian directors, Ashley Krongold and Fred Bart, that I think are also well known in Australia. In the management team, the raises that we did last year enabled me to really strengthen the management team. We hired 3 amazing VPs. I think I can say without hesitation, each one of them is probably the best guy in Israel in his job. Yishai Naveh as the CTO, he has, I guess, also something like 40 years of experience almost at Tower Semiconductor, and he was one of the founders of Adesto, which is another ReRAM company that was acquired. We have Ilan Sever, who in the last 10 years, all he did was develop memory modules. He was managing Dolphin in Israel. And Eran, our VP marketing, who had the same role in Siva, which is now the largest, the number 1 DSP company in the world. He was there from day one. So really an amazing team, and I can go on and on, but it's phenomenal. I'm just so proud of him.
It's very rare you get so many high caliber people in one organization, but clearly an indication of the opportunity that you see, which is what has brought everybody together. Maybe we can just touch on that opportunity. Can you just talk a little bit? There's been a lot of coverage about the Tesla recall and the issues that chips have had in performance. Can you just give a sense of the challenge, the problem in the market at the moment, and that'll then help set the context of, Weebit's solution and what you've developed?
Yeah, so I think it's important that the market will understand that semiconductors are everywhere. Non-volatile memories are everywhere today. I often show a graph that shows 9 out of the top 10 market cap companies in the world today are basically semiconductor companies or heavily related to semiconductors. And I guess Tesla is just a good example. They recalled 160,000 cars, and people just assume that it was because of the engine or braking system or something like that. They don't realize that it was just a non-volatile memory that they managed to wear out. Basically the flash technology, after between 1,000 and 10,000 times that you write into it, it wears out. Our technology, in comparison, it's between 100,000 and 1 million. So, they just download the operating system into the car every night, and after 3 years, you just end up wearing out the memory.
So, sorry, go on.
No, and in terms of the industry in general, I think even in the general press today, you already read about the shortage of semiconductors. You hear about how there aren't enough cars. The car manufacturers are now not managing to produce the cars, and so on. Semiconductors are really a key element in our lives. We can't avoid them no matter where we look. Like you said, if it's cell phones or computers or refrigerators, washing machines, or a million other things.
So the problem with, you obviously outlined the problem with flash, and there'll be other solutions, not just ReRAM, obviously. But can you talk through how, aside from the number of times that you write, can you talk through the benefits of Weebit's ReRAM versus flash in terms of all the other key components?
Well, I think the number one point is really, you know, I'd love to go into the technology, and we are 100 times lower power consumption than flash, and much faster, and a lot of other things. But if you want to point at one key advantage, we're just very simple to manufacture. There's a lot of smarts in it and a lot of patents, but at the end of the day, when you want to manufacture a ReRAM, it's just 2 additional masks and a few layers in the fab, and you're done, and it's back end of line. It comes on top of the design. So it's really very simple. So, you know, in terms of money, we add something like 5% to the cost of a wafer. Just to give you a feeling, the flash technology requires already many more layers, many more masks, many more layers. They add you know, more than 10%, more like 20% to the cost of a wafer. If you look at competing technologies like MRAM, that's already, you know, the number of layers there is crazy, and the added costs can go up to 40 and even more percent to the cost of the wafer. So, you know, the key element, and I think, again, that's where you can see the quality of this board and management team. We know that, oh, you want to have the best technology possible, but it has to be cost competitive. It has to be competitive in the marketplace. And I think that's the key thing. We're using standard materials. We can go into any fab in the world with relative ease. And as I said, fabs are extremely expensive. They're extremely delicate. If you come in with something that's non-standard, you know, it goes crazy. I mean, they just won't want to see you even, and it goes crazy. We're just very standard. We go in, we use the same materials that they're using today. We're using the same machinery, and basically, you know, again, in relative ease, we can go and qualify the technology and move on. So that's really the key element.
So with such a powerful new technology, and you're now moving, Weebit's now moving from effectively the research and development phase, and it's now very much at the start of the commercialization phase. What are the challenges in moving from R&D into commercialization with a new technology? You know, not everybody jumps straight away to grab it. So can you kind of talk us through what those challenges are? And then I think maybe what that does is then that kind of leads into, you know, the announcement you made recently around the first commercial deal. And you know, how that's broken the nexus. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so it's hard sometimes to understand just how complex, how sensitive everything in semiconductors is. You know, we're talking in nanometers, and people don't really feel what a nanometer is. It's a 10 to the minus 9 of a meter. It's almost the size of, you know, large molecules, you could say. I mean, it's really, we're practically taking the atoms and putting them each one in its place. So it's very delicate. That's why fabs cost billions of dollars to set up. That's why even companies like Google and Facebook and Qualcomm don't have their own fabs. It's just way too expensive, too complicated to maintain these things. So the process of transferring the technology into production, even though we're using, again, as I said, standard materials and everything, transferring the technology, you need to have those little tweaks. I mean, you know, if Leti uses an oven of manufacturer X, and Skywater, our first commercial agreement is with a fab called Skywater in the US. I'll talk about them in a second. You know, they might use an oven of a different manufacturer or something. You know, those little tiny changes between those manufacturers require adjustment, require adaptation. And so it takes time to do these little adaptations, not a lot, but still. And then we need to do what's called qualification. which basically means to run a lot of wafers through the fab and just test them and see that we're basically production ready, that all of the wafers come out of the line with the same results, that there's uniformity, that there's reproducibility, there's all of those nice words that basically show the yield is high, that the number of actually working dies on each wafer, the die is basically what goes into a chip at the end. The number of working dies in a wafer is high enough, the yield is high so that it can actually go into mass production. And each round in the fab, every time you send a lot of wafers through the fab, it's a few months until you get the results. It's just, that's the nature of this business. So if we just do a couple of rounds like that, you're already talking about more than half a year, and so it takes some time to do it. We're very lucky that we're using standard materials. Everything is so simple. So we're expecting by the end of next year to have a qualification for the first version and really move forward. Now, in terms of Skywater, they are really a perfect partner for us. We're really, really happy to work with Skywater. They are a DoD accredited fab, so they're certified by the US Department of Defense. They are really pushing forward. They're very aggressive and they want to grow and expand. And I think, as I understand it, they just see that with ReRAM, it gives them a competitive advantage. So, today, many of the fabs that we talked to were just saying, there's just such a shortage. The demand is so high. Let us work right now, just manufacture and get as much revenue as we can, enjoy this moment. I think in the case of Skywater, there's also strategic thinking about the future, and eventually this crazy situation will be will end. People are setting up many more new fabs to address the demand, and they will have this added advantage that they will already have our ReRAM certified there. So it's great. We're very happy to work with them and looking forward to getting to the mass production there.
So taking memory technology into a fab is challenging because the fab would say, well, why would I want to devote a line to you when, if you don't have a customer? And going to a customer and saying, well, use my technology, and the customer says, well, that's fine, looks interesting, but I can't produce it because it's not in a fab. And so you kind of end this, chicken and the egg thing constantly going back and forth. Yeah. So what is, and that signing, and by the way, I assume Skywater, maybe you can talk about it. Skywater did their research. They didn't just go, we're appointing Weebit because Coby's a nice guy and we like the name of the company. Like, they've clearly done their research. So why did they pick Weebit? And then importantly, having announced and having signed and working with Skywater and announced that agreement, what's been the impact in terms of other conversations you're having with fabs and customers? Because I assume that's now kind of helped to break that chicken and the egg revolving door type scenario.
Yeah, the chicken and the egg situation was extremely frustrating. It's, for a very long time, we've been talking to customers and showing the technology, and they're like, wow, this looks like a great technology, but where can we manufacture? And then you go to the fabs and they look at it and they say, this is great technology, but do you have customers? And we were kind of stuck in that situation. So I'm really happy that Skywater, they did their due diligence, they checked things out, they agreed to move forward. They're licensing our technology, so we have a licensing agreement with them. It's important to note that. And with them, we can really move forward. I believe, as I said, I can't speak for Skywater, but I believe that they saw the strategic advantage of working with Weebit, and that we'll be bringing. Actually, we are already. We're talking the customers that we have been talking to. Now, some of them have already called Skywater and started to work with them to get what's called the PDK, the basic library that enables you to plan to manufacture there. So that's been happening. We've had Skywater customers contact us, and we're working now with Skywater on how we approach their customers and expand things. So it's yeah, it's great now that we finally closed this triangle, and we have the fab, and now we can talk to the potential customers and really see how we move things forward. Now, it's important, again, another point to make clear, the customers, most of them are very, very cautious about this. They're putting the future of their product on the line here. So many of them don't want to talk to Weebit before we have the technology qualified. However, there are the customers that see the value of this technology. They realize that even if they choose it now, it's going to take them a year or a year and a half to design a product and have it ready for mass production. And by then we'll be qualified. So, I've had people who were concerned about, oh, you're not going to have any customers in the next year. We believe we will have customers. We are planning to sign up customers in the upcoming year before we're qualified. We believe it's possible, and really be ready for the day that we're getting into mass production.
Have you had any fabs call you and say, "Hey, why didn't you speak to me?"
I actually had a fab call me and say, Coby, we just realized one of our customers is talking to Skywater. What's going on here? So yeah, I had that happen. Yeah, we've been talking to many fabs over the past year. It wasn't just Skywater that we were talking to. I think that there's always this situation where the first one moves forward and suddenly the other ones wake up and say, oh, wow, something's happening here. So clearly there is that. I believe the Skywater agreement, and by the way, it's non-exclusive. We are and we will be talking to other fabs and licensing the technology to other fabs. I am focused right now to just make sure that with Skywater things go well. So the technical team is working very closely with Skywater to make absolutely sure that we don't have any bad surprises. Everything will just go as planned. But on the business side, we are talking to other fabs, and we will be signing up additional fabs.
So it's pretty exciting time ahead, having moved from development into commercialization. And I'm glad you're saying you're very busy talking to lots of people. Maybe we can reflect also on some of the technological milestones too, because it's the agreement with Skywater is for a specific memory technology level, and you've now been able to scale down to even smaller levels. So can you just talk about what the commercial agreement with Skywater covers, and then talk about what the recent technological development was and what that means in terms of what it opens up for the market for Weebit's memory technology?
Yeah, so first of all, in semiconductors, we basically talk about the geometries, and it basically reflects the size of the transistor. So we talk about 130 nanometer or 28 nanometer or etc. It's basically the sizes of the elements on the chip. The agreement with Skywater is on 130 nanometer technology. This is more, you would say, quotes, an older technology, but it's actually a very popular technology. Whoever doesn't need to move to the much more advanced technologies, which are much more expensive, of course, 130 is a real sweet spot, and a lot of people are working with them. So the licensing, to be clear, Skywater licensed our technology for the 130 nanometer production line in their fab. They also do 90 nanometers. They're working now on 65 nanometers, and they will need to sign separate licensing deals for those. we now announced that we also have reached 28 nanometers, which is the second sweet spot in the industry. There's really a large range of geometries that people work in, but 130 for the, let's say if I'll call it simpler devices, and 28 for the more advanced technologies. Those are really the sweet spots. 28 is really an inflection point, and I won't go into all of the technical details, but once you achieve 28, you really moved into the next phase. And from there, you can go down to the smaller geometries. And it's really important to realize flash technology, the existing non-volatile memory technology, is a technology that can't really go down below 40 nanometers. 40 nanometers, some people are trying to push it to 28, but it's really, that's where it gets stuck. So going down to the smaller geometries, and that's where the advanced things are. That's where you have AI and autonomous vehicles and a lot of very advanced applications. They really need non-volatile memory embedded, and today it's very hard for them to find a good solution.
And when you talk about the geometries, where's Flash at, and has it reached a kind of a limit?
Yeah, so it's basically stuck at 40, you could say. It went down to 40. They tried to go down to 28. People are still trying to push it to 28, but it's really, for a lot of reasons, which I won't go into, you can't really move Flash beyond 40. Going down to 28 and below, it just it's not feasible. So they're stuck there, and that's why once we got to 28, and now we're looking at going down to smaller geometries, and the raise that we did will enable us to move forward to smaller geometries. That's really where it's almost a vacuum. There's a huge demand, and it's really going to be very exciting.
So I'm just conscious of time, and we've got a stack of questions, and I'm sure people still want to be able to go for dinner, given we said we would finish at 5:30. But you just touched on the raise that you've done. Can you talk to that a little bit? There was obviously some new investors that have come on board, and obviously the funding will allow you to really accelerate growth. So can you give us a bit of background on the raise and why that's been a really positive milestone for the company?
Well, I'm at Weebit now for over 4 years, and I think from day one I kept getting this question from Australians. What about institutional investors? And you guys are from Startup Nation. Why don't you have big institutions from Israel investing in the company? So the question kept coming up over and over. People said, that's what would really give us, the Israeli funds, they understand semiconductors. They come from a semiconductor country and so on. We need to, that will really give us the confidence in the company. So I heard that so many times. So, we've been talking to these Israeli funds for a long time, updating them as we proceed. And I was really, very glad when, I guess about a week and a half ago, they came to us and they said, listen, Coby, we've been following up on you guys. We saw that everything that you say you will do, you're doing. You said you're going to have a commercial agreement. You did the commercial agreement. You said you'll be moving to 28 nanometers. You said all of these things, and we're just seeing you guys execute. So, we want in, we want to come in. You need to realize, these guys are not used to investing in Australia. Most of them haven't ever invested in Australia, or if they did, it was just little tiny things here and there. So for them, this was a challenge to overcome. But I'm really proud of the fact that they believe in the company, and that they decided to make this step, and they are investing in us. The money that they're bringing in is really important for us, because when you go down to the smaller geometries, everything becomes much more expensive, and you really need those funds to push forward. The challenges are higher. So this money will enable us to really push the technology forward, in general, improve it for all nodes, but especially going down to smaller geometries. It will enable us to continue to work on the discrete technology, on the standalone chips. So we, the money is very important for us, but I think that the fact that it's, the top, Meitav Dash is one of the top pension funds in Israel. I think, I believe I can say top 3 if I'm not mistaken. They're very big, very well known, and I think this gives us a lot of credibility now. These guys know what they're doing, and I'm extremely proud to have them on board. Them, and it's actually 4 funds that came in. We're naming only Meitav Dash, but the 4 funds, I'm extremely happy with each one of them.
I think also important as a pension fund, they take a much longer term view. They don't invest to flip. They invest because they're looking at 3, 5, 10 years out.
They basically, 2 things that happen. One is they told me, once we invest, it's at least 5 years before we look at the screen again. We're just in there and we don't even look at the share for 5 years. And the other thing was they were adamant that nobody will join the raise unless they are similarly, they're long-term thinkers and so on. So we had a few funds that wanted to come in that Meitav Dash said, no, those guys don't hold long. We don't want them in this raise. So yeah, I'm very happy. These guys think long-term, and in our case, in semiconductors, that's exactly, it's very important, and the money that we got now will enable us to really reach some major milestones moving forward.
So the list of questions continues to get longer, but we need to finish up. So Coby, maybe just one last question from me. What most excites you about the growth opportunities available for Weebit today?
It's this whole domain is so exciting. We're living in amazing times where the transformation is amazing, and just seeing this company, taking this company and moving it forward, and this amazing team. I mean, the team is just awesome. I wake up in the morning and I'm just so excited and can't wait to go and work with them again and push things forward. I think Weebit, the ReRAM technology has a huge potential moving forward. Right now, the non-volatile memory market is estimated at $100 billion US, that it'll be, in just a couple of years, in a few years. It's a big market. We have a great solution. We have an amazing team and great technology. So it's just awesome. I'm enjoying my work very much.
Well, Coby, thank you very much. For everybody still on the line, thank you all for participating in TechOpps 2021. We hope you've had a terrific 2 days, and delighted to obviously finish off our conference with Coby and Weebit, particularly in light of, and I'm sure, as I'm sure you'll confirm, the timing of the announcement of the cap raise had nothing to do with the conference. But we're delighted that it aligned very nicely between the two, and you came out of a trading halt yesterday morning, and we didn't have to cancel your presentation, because it's always great to talk to you and get an update on where the company's at and what growth opportunities it's delivering on. So thank you, Coby, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We hope you all enjoyed this session and also the conference.